The marketplace on Othra 9 was always cold. Not just chilly, bone-deep, metal-biting, soul-numbing cold. It was built into the planet's crust, shielded from the acidic rainstorms above. But that came with its own price. The stone and alloy walls leached away heat like a hungry beast. And yet, among the many alien traders and smugglers scurrying for warmth, she stood still. A lone figure draped in tattered robes, hugging herself tightly near the warmth of a vent shaft, her breath misting before her dark blue skin. The long folds of her robes did little to shield her from the brutal chill. Derek Maddox paused when he saw her. He was a scrapper, a scavenger making a living picking through dead tech from the ruins of old orbital wars. He barely had enough to feed himself, but something in her stillness stopped him. She wasn't begging. She wasn't selling. She was simply existing, quietly, coldly. Her eyes met his. They were luminous silver with specks of violet, wide and empty. "Need something?" he asked. Not the smoothest line, but it was all he had. She looked away. "No," she replied softly. "I've lost enough." Her voice was musical, haunting even. Derek didn't ask questions. He walked into the nearest stall and slapped down his last credit. A blue glass coin etched with a single starburst for a heavy thermal blanket. He felt the sting of it as the transaction completed. That was supposed to buy his next meal. He returned and offered it wordlessly. She stared at it, then at him. "Why?" "Because you're cold," he said simply. The alien woman reached forward and took the blanket with trembling hands. "No one gives to widows," she whispered. "They think death follows us like a shadow." "I don't believe in shadows," Derek said. "Just in warmth and choice." She blinked at that, once, twice, and then wrapped herself tightly in the blanket. "Come," he said. "There's a heater back in my bunk." She followed. Her name was Trayla. She was a Zarian widow, of the Matari sect, where after a mate's death, the female was cast out, deemed spiritually cursed. That explained the isolation, the grief, the hunger. She ate with him that night, shared his last ration bar, chewed with slow dignity. Derek watched her hands, long fingers, webbed at the knuckles, trembling as they lifted the food to her mouth. "Where's your home?" he asked. "Gone," she said. "Burned during the purge of Sector 17. "Family," she shook her head. "They don't speak to the widow of a dead warrior." "Superstition. Sounds like a load of crap," Derek muttered. Trayla tilted her head. "You're different." He shrugged. "Humans have our flaws, but we don't throw away people for grieving." She looked at him for a long while. "Then I wish I had been born human." Weeks passed. Derek took on scavenging jobs, and Trayla cleaned his quarters, repaired gear, even stitched his torn jacket with threads harvested from salvage. He didn't ask her to. She just did it. One night, he returned with a bruised rib and a torn knee from a collapsing hull breach. She tended to him in silence, using herbs she foraged and nanogel she synthesized from scrap. Her hands were gentle. Her voice was a balm. Her presence filled the empty spaces in his broken life. "What do you want, Trayla?" he asked her one night, lying side by side on the thin mattress in their cramped bunk. "To matter," she said. "To be more than a widow. To be someone's beginning, not their end." He turned to face her. "You already matter. To me." She searched his eyes. "You gave your last credit for a stranger. And now, I am no longer cold." She leaned closer. "Do humans warm each other this way?" Derek's throat tightened. "Sometimes. Will you teach me?" He nodded. And that night, the woman who had once stood freezing and alone beneath the vent shaft wrapped herself not in a blanket, but in his arms. Their bond deepened. He taught her Terran jokes. She sang to him in Zarian lullabies. They scavenged together, fought raiders together, laughed under dying stars together. But trouble came, as it always does. One evening, A squad of sector marshals arrived at the outpost, stormtroopers clad in chrome armor, seeking illegal refugees. Trayla froze when she saw them. "They'll take me," she whispered. "Back to Zaria, to be stoned. That's how widows die." "Like hell," Derek growled. He packed what little gear they had. "We're leaving." They scanned for IDs. "My biometrics are registered. Then we make you untraceable." He found an old smuggler contact who owed him a favor. A back-alley neural surgeon who specialized in unwriting identities for a price. 1,000 credits, the surgeon demanded. Derek didn't have it, so he sold his plasma rifle, his exosuit, his last usable gear. Every tool he'd ever scavenged. Every piece of his survival. He returned, poorer than ever, but smiling. Trayla wept. "You gave everything for me." He kissed her forehead. "I gave nothing. I just gave back what you already gave me." They escaped through the underbelly of Othra 9, crammed into a cargo pod among livestock and rusted mech parts. They drifted toward the free zone. Trayla pressed her forehead to his. "You have no home now." "You are my home," Derek said. Years passed. They built a small life in the asteroid colony of Feral Delta. Trayla ran a tea shop near the docks, where tired freighter pilots could find warmth, laughter, and a cup of her signature blend. Derek worked repairs and told wild stories about how he fell in love with a goddess in rags. She laughed at that, but sometimes when no one was watching, she'd pull the old thermal blanket from the closet, the same one he bought with his last credit, and wrap herself in it while sitting at the window, watching the stars. She never forgot that moment, because in that freezing market, when no one else dared to look at her, one man did. He didn't see a curse. He saw a soul worth saving, and in return, she gave him a reason to live. Every evening, long after the stars blinked out one by one behind the drifting haze of fuel clouds, Derek would sit by their bedside, watching her braid her silver-black hair. And he'd whisper the same words. "I don't need riches. I don't need glory. I only need the warmth of the woman who once stood in the cold." And she would always reply with a smile. "And I only need the man who gave his last credit, not to buy me, not to save me, but to make sure I never had to shiver again."